Now I will continue with the next topic, the coming up of the factory. Now in the previous topic we discussed about proto-industrial period, that was the age before industrial revolution. Now let us see how industrial revolution began. So first factories in England came up in 1730s and the industries multiplied in the late 18th century. So late 18th century there was large number of industries started setting up. So that age is the industrial revolution. Now the first symbol of the new era was cotton textile industries. Its production boomed, increased in the late 19th century. And 1760, Britain was importing 2.5 million pounds of raw cotton and to feed their cotton industries. But by 1787, its import increased to 22 million pounds. So you can understand that the industrial revolution, it totally changed the production process. This increase was linked to a number of change within the process of production, because now the entire thing was done with the help of machines. The weaving, spinning, that everything that was being done, dyeing and all, it was in the domestic system done manually, but now it was being done with the help of machine. So this was a total change in the system of production. So we can see a series of invention in the 18th centuries that only led to change in the production process, like carding, twisting, spinning and rolling, as I was telling you, that all these now it increased the efficiency of the workers. So the productivity of workers increased. Now they can contribute more. So that made possible the production of stronger threads and yarn also with this modern machineries. Now there is one marker question which is expected in the examination. Then Richard Arkwright, who created the cotton mill. Please underline. Till this time we can see that his name Richard Arkwright, who created the cotton mill. Then you will find that there was large number of innovations, that new machines were being introduced that increased the production process in the 19th centuries. Factories became increasingly an intimate part of the English landscape. So this was after we can see so many machines were being introduced. Production also started increasing, but the pace of industrial revolution was very slow. The question again it may come, why the pace of industrial revolution was so slow in the earlier phase, in the initial era. Now, firstly, the most dynamic industries in Britain. So, we will try to understand some of the features of industrial revolution, and we will try to answer that question also, why the pace of industrial revolution was so slow. So, firstly, we will discuss about the few industries which dominated here in Britain. It was cotton industry and metal industry initially, because again these questions are important for the examination. Now after that the iron and steel industry led the way. So initially it was cotton and metal industry that was overtaken by iron and steel industries. The reason behind it, because that time all developmental projects were going on in European countries, and also the railway tracks, railways lines that they started constructing. Even in the colonies there was large scale demand for iron and steel. So because of the expansion of railways and all. So these industries you have to remember which dominated in the early phase. Then comes the new industries. But one thing to be remembered, the domestic system of production was going on. What is the other name? That is proto-industrialization. that we discussed in detail. So that is domestic system of production, that proto-industrial period, the production which was going on, that could not easily be displaced. This modern machineries could not displace the traditional industries even at the end of the 19th century, because less than 20% people, the total workforce, were working in the industrial sector, but large number of people were still working in that domestic system only. The textile was a dynamic sector, but a large portion of the output was produced not within the factories but outside within the domestic units. So why this was happening? Because the modern machineries, people found that accuracy, that perfection was not there, and which could be done with manually, and there was large scale demand for those work, that is the production which was going on through the domestic system. The aristocrat class, still they were demanding the products which were coming from the domestic market. Thirdly, the pace of change. Now we are going to, these are the features of early industrialization, and here also we are going to discuss about why the pace of industrial revolution was so slow in the initial stage. The pace of change in the traditional industries was not by steam powered control or metal industries, but they did not remain entirely stagnant either. So we can see that one side, because of industrial revolution and with modern machineries, the factory system that was working very smoothly, but they could not totally replace the domestic system, the domestic units. It does not mean that domestic system remained always outdated products they were producing. It was not like that. Their products were of finer quality, and they also introduced some new machines, simple tools and implements to increase their efficiency and to increase the production. That also is one of the factor that they could not replace the traditional system, because there also some innovations were going on. Fourthly, we can see that why the technological changes occurred very slowly. I mean, now we are doing that question, why the pace of industrial revolution was so slow. There are many reasons. The first one is because the modern machineries were very expensive, and many of them could not afford to buy them. And some industrialists were very cautious about using it. They had fear in their minds that if machine goes out of order, then how the maintenance cost will be very expensive, and during that time how they will manage their production. At the same time, there were some of the goods which are produced, they are seasonal in nature, and industrialists used to believe that if they employ the workers, they can terminate them according to their convenience. But once the machineries are purchased, that will be kept, even if kept in the factory, and sometimes they may not require those machineries, so it will be waste. So this type of thinking was prevailing in their minds. The machines often broke down, and the repairing cost is very high. They were not as effective. They believed that it is not effective as their inventors and manufacturers claimed. That is why now you can see one example we are trying to understand, that modern machineries were available in the market, but there was no buyer. James Watt, his name is again important for one objective question. He improved the steam engine, and that was produced by Newcomen. But he also found that there was no buyer for his steam engine. At the beginning of the 19th century, there were no more than 321 steam engines, and all over England of these 80 were in cotton industries. So knowing about these industries, people were aware of these modern machineries, but they were not ready to buy them. So even the most powerful new technology that enhanced the production of labor manifold was very slow to be accepted by the industrialist. That is why the pace of industrial revolution remained very slow in the beginning. Next topic I'll take in my next video.